Oké, zullen we er eens aan beginnen?
Dat is goed.
Hi, Jacqui. It's so nice to have you on this podcast.
Hi, Annick. Thanks for having me. Very nice to be here.
Yeah, well, I looked you up and I thought, let me have a look at what she's been doing all this time. And I found this amazing resume. So I want to do the honor and read all of it so that people know who you are and what you've been doing in your career. So up till February of this year, you were the director of Enduring Priorities Learning at McKinsey Company, and you were a member of their Global Learning Leadership team. Next to your business pursuits, you had also built up an impressive academic career. Currently, you are an Adjunct Professor at IE University in Madrid, visiting research fellow at the VU Amsterdam, Faculty of Business and Economics in the Netherlands. And over your career, you have authored or co-authored over 20 books and articles in the area of organizational behavior and leadership development. Your latest book, which we will discuss a lot today, you wrote with two professors, Professor Van Dam and Van Witteloostuijn. I hope I pronounced that right. It is in the store since 2019, and it's called Advancing Authentic Confidence Through Emotional Flexibility. You have degrees in business and medical science. You hold a BC in international business, a cum laude bachelor's and master's in organization sciences, a PhD in business, and as a lifelong learner. You recently got an additional joint master's degree in Affective Neuroscience from the University of Maastricht in the Netherlands and Firenze in Italy. And what I really also want to mention is that since 2017, you are a proud member of the supervisory board of the Save the Children's organization in the Netherlands. What a mouthful. I don't know if you have more than 24 hours in a day, but it certainly looks like it.
Well, Annick, that summarized what I've done, right? It doesn't summarize who I am really, but a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, yes, that is true. That's an interesting remark that you're making there. Because that's, of course, what it did with me. It's like, oh, wow, she knows a lot. And therefore, I don't know as much. But of course, it doesn't mention who we are. And yeah, that's true. But it does seem that you've spent a lot of your time professionally on pursuing what you're passionate about, though.
Yes, I enjoy learning, and I enjoy bringing that together in my day-to-day life with work. And in what I try to give back to society. And I've learned I became more aware of being a lifelong learner since I started to work with Professor Van Dam, who taught me about this topic as well. And it's fun. It's fun. There's always something to do in the days. Indeed, 24 hours a day is often not enough. But more importantly, of course, I have a family. I live in the Netherlands, and I have 12-year-old twins. Married a South African, and trying to juggle everything, with the family and work and learning.
Yeah. I was talking, I don't know if you know her, I was talking today to Rikke Kjelgaard. She's a trainer, a psychologist in Sweden. And she said, well, if you have a passion to do what you're doing, then it's even harder to take care of yourself, because it's not that your work is not something that you want to be occupied by. It's something that you most definitely want to be occupied by. So yes, I can imagine juggling probably is the right word to describe.
Yes.
Find a balance. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would like to talk about your book because, and for those of the listeners who don't know you from your book, they might know you from the 2 TEDx's that you did on this topic as well, is about the, I'm going to take the title again because I think it's a very nice chosen title, Advancing Authentic Confidence Through Emotional Flexibility. Can you tell us what it is about?
Yes, absolutely. If I may, I will take a few steps before when it actually started, what the history was, and indeed, this is the English version of this book. Mm-hmm. Advancing Authentic Confidence is really about finding the courage to do what really matters to you most. And this journey started for me a few years before 2019 when this book came out. And I talk about that in my TED Talk as well, my first one that I did at INSEAD. I talk about my confidence crisis. And I had a confidence crisis in a period in my life that I thought, that I really was surprised to have a confidence crisis, because I thought, why would I have a confidence crisis now? My whole life, I worked hard to achieve things, and you just mentioned that whole list, Annick, of all the diplomas that I was able to receive through the years. I also worked for big companies like Unilever. I had nice roles there, and I was fortunate to travel the world and to really be, have a few accomplishments on my resume. Yet I still, and then you think, I thought, once I've achieved this, once I've achieved that, then I don't have a reason to be insecure anymore. Yet something happened in my life that triggered my insecurity. And I really went through a phase of, which I now call afterwards, I called it a confidence crisis. And that was hugely painful. So I continued to work. I was still performing, participating in the working context, but I was suffering in silence because I had the feeling I had to be somebody else. I had to act as if I knew everything. And I was very much insecure. I suffered from anxiety, constantly thinking I wasn't good enough. I had this inner voice that was getting in the way. And eventually, I had to make a decision whether I was going to walk away from it or whether I was going to take action, whether I was going to, to deal with it. Mm-hmm. And I very strongly felt inside of me that I had to deal with it. And more of the details, of course, in my TED Talk, but that brought me on the journey of studying the topic of confidence, also academically, because I on the side, I was an academic already, and I wanted to understand what is this thing. It also brought me on the journey towards that neuroscience study that I did later on, because I wanted to explain physically and scientifically also what this topic is. And also I started to work on myself and to find my journey to confidence, to authentic confidence, because and the reason we call it authentic confidence. Along the way, I already worked with Dam and Van Witteloostuijn because he was my promoter for my PhD, and then Nick van Dam I met along the way, and so we all went on this journey together of research and writing. Mm-hmm. And that's when I found out a couple of things. I was not alone. There's a very large proportion, actually, of people in the working context that suffer in silence as well. It's very normal. That's the other thing I found. It's a physical reaction. And the last thing, the third thing, it's very important. There is something that you can learn to help cope with this. Now, coming back to why I call this authentic, it's really about becoming comfortable with discomfort, because it's not something that you can say, there is, it's a disease, you have to heal it, and then you take it away and you never feel it anymore. Mm-hmm. That's not it. It's a journey. And every time you go out of your comfort zone, you run the risk, maybe is the right word, you may encounter this feeling of discomfort. And how do you deal with that? And what does it do eventually also to your performance? Now, there's a lot there that we write about in our book. And we tested it now as well. So we tested it in practice. We wrote an academic article on it. And so that's how this book got born. And, the rest is history. I continue to work in this space, and it has given me wings. It is a story of self-empowerment. And on purpose, it is a story about what you can do, actually, to manage discomfort and change and uncertainty. And it's not a book for organizational context and leaderships that needs to, because I believe also organizations need to create safety and a good environment. But that other people write a lot about that as well. Amy Edmonton. This was really a book about what can you do, because sometimes you cannot choose your environment, but you can choose how you respond to an environment. That's
Yeah. Oh, so much that I want to say. But on the last thing that you're saying, exactly, we often think that that what we suffer from is something that is happening outside of us, and oftentimes it is what is happening or the response that we're doing towards it that makes it difficult or helps us get through it. So
it's not so much about the emotions itself. It's how you or the experience itself is how you learn how to respond to it. Mm-hmm. And the response in first can be dysfunctional, can be unhelpful, but you can learn actually to find a helpful response that is easier for you. So there was a time, Annick, that I also blamed a lot of my discomfort and my challenges on my environment. Mm-hmm. And whilst partly things that may be true, maybe circumstances, it all depends, but eventually it doesn't matter. Eventually you can still make lemonade out of lemons. It's easier said than done though, but that is a little bit what this was about for me.
Yeah, and at the same time I hear, and it's also in your title, authentic, like as if it was one of the maybe results or solutions is that you start listening to that authentic voice and try to be that and not just try and be someone else, because that makes you more vulnerable than trying to be yourself. And
it was very liberating for me also to experience, because I still remember at some point there were people when I started to share my story, and I strongly felt I had to talk about it. Now that was very weird that I felt it, but I had to. Mm-hmm. And there were also people that really asked me why I would do that, because they said this may hurt your career. It may not be good for you to be so open and vulnerable. And I'm not saying that everybody need to do exactly the same, because it's a personal journey. But for me, in that moment, I had a very strong, like an inner fire that started to burn. I said, I don't care anymore what will happen to my career. I have to talk about. I'm actually now becoming very curious. Can I be vulnerable and still succeed? That was a little bit. One side of it, and the other side of it was that I thought, well, people need to know that this is normal. Like, most people have 2 arms and 2 legs. It's normal between brackets. These feelings and these experiences are normal, but because they are psychological experiences, we tend to put them in a bucket where there's stigma. And I remember very much that I chose. Now I'm going to talk about it, and let's see where it leads me. And now I can say often, since that I took that decision and I've opened up, I've been promoted twice in the same organization where I still work. And there's a lot of, great stuff that has happened. And so I'm not scared anymore to be vulnerable. Actually, it makes life much easier because it has helped me to keep my mind open and to learn. I'm a lifelong learner. We spoke about that. I can learn much better if I'm more authentic. Mm-hmm. But it's important to mention that you need to feel ready for it. And I know there are circumstances where you want to be careful. And, it's not like, okay, forget about everything and just be
open book.
Yeah, that is very personal, contextual as well, I must say. It all depends on the journey that you're on. And if you want to know more, I would say, read about it, find help. But for me, this was very important. And it continues to be a principle in my life. I'm very fine saying that I don't know everything. And I'm actually every day, I'm keen to continue to learn because science continues to develop. Mm-hmm. Possible to know everything. So yeah, it's great to just be like this. Yeah,
and it's what you said in the beginning is very important too. Whatever it has little to do with who you are. And it of course forms you, but it is a part of you, but it's not you. And if you get to identify with what I know is who I am, then maybe things might not go as well as expected. I'm gathering your life quality won't grow in because you know more. It doesn't. You're not growing as a person. So I love it that you can put these things next to each other. I mean, it would have been very easy to identify with what you know and with the degrees that you have, but you've learned that being more authentic and being more a person instead of a living encyclopedia is very important to do.
Yeah, what I noticed, Annick, that was well, because there was a time in my life that I was, trying to. I also remember when I grew up, I thought I would never be able to do university, really, because that I was, we were not those type of people, and we probably were not good enough for that. And eventually, something in my life happened, and I thought, well, if I don't give it a chance,
Mm-hmm.
I never know. So let me give it a chance and let's see what I can do. It's a long story, so I'll summarize it. My first grade was, I think I got an 8 or something. And then I thought, wow, for the first exam at university, I thought maybe I can do it. And I also thought, well, and once I do graduate for my degree in university, I may feel better because I was very insecure. I always have had low grade anxiety. And of course, a miracle happened. I got my degree, even cum laude, of course. And this insecurity didn't go away. And then I thought, well, maybe I should then start working for Unilever, and maybe I should become a director. Maybe I need to get my PhD, continuously finding. And this insecurity didn't go away. So I had to learn it the hard way. So I add the morale here is it's not about those things. Contrarily, actually, and the other aspect is if you are so much fusing, so much identifying with the stickers and the titles or whatever you have, it's very difficult to connect with other people.
Yeah.
You don't see other people. You can't see yourself really.
Yeah.
You see others, and eventually the most important lesson that I've learned is people want to be seen, and that's how you can actually get to better relationships and results if you are collaborating. And yeah, that's also an ongoing challenge because life as it happens these days is constantly putting pressure on us to which we have pitfalls everywhere.
Yeah, we do. And I think that what you mentioned is if you continue building your confidence on on the outside of you instead of on the inside, you talk about the fact that connection falls away, and not with anyone else, but again, especially with yourself, because you talked about in the beginning, you said just very quickly, the book has to do with what matters to you the most. And if you're too busy on finding ways for people to see you in a certain way, then how can you listen to what your heart has to say and to what really matters most? I mean, that's not a simple. We've talked about this before. That's not a simple issue to find what matters most to you. So you really need to connect with yourself and with others to find that. And that's a difficult thing to do if you're very busy on making sure that the outside of you is appreciated and seen by others.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Absolutely. And it's an ongoing journey. It's
Yeah, even knowing that, I thought of I wanted I always want to ask the question. So does this mean that you're not afraid anymore, or how does that work? Because I haven't found that formula yet.
yeah.
So, but of course you are.
I get that question a lot. Yeah, I get that question a lot. Yeah, and And that's fine, actually. It also means insecurity happens when you get when you don't feel safe. Basically, if you're in a very simple way, simply said, if you don't feel 100% safe, now that sounds heavy, but it can mean already not feeling safe whilst I'm here on this this call with you, thinking like, oh gosh, I hope I told the kids that I cannot be disturbed, or I hope my internet continues to work. If I start thinking about that, it can cause already anxiety. It can cause a lack of safety, because then it doesn't go right, then this whole talk may be messed up. I'm talking about that type of safety, but it can be also at higher levels. And that happens all the time. The moment you have to learn something new, you go out of your comfort zone per definition. Mm-hmm. And out of your comfort zone, stuff happens in your body, stuff happens in your brain, which then, luckily we have bodies that work like that. They give us signals that, hey, be careful, or hey, watch out, or hey, and then a stress reaction may happen. If I would not feel like this anymore, I think I would be in my status quo. And as a lifelong learner, as we talked about at the beginning, that is a no-go for me. For me, there is one rule in life: I want to continue to grow and develop. Society also asks that of us. It's one of my values, actually. I want to make sure I give back. I want to make sure I continue to add value. And then, that's part of it. And so that means I feel like this on a regular basis, definitely. Mm-hmm. Not always comfortable, but I know how to deal with it. I have this toolkit. And sometimes I think, gosh, I don't know if I need to refresh my toolkit, because there are new things coming up every day as well. Also, when we get older and family circumstances change, physical circumstances change for us. Mm-hmm. So yes, it's a long answer to your question, but yes, I experience it on a daily basis. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I love the fact that you say, I mean, that's a degree of authenticity that we don't often see. Like, I do have the toolbox, and when I don't feel well, I can use the toolbox. And there are times when the toolbox when I doubt the toolbox is enough, and I need a new toolbox. And where is it? Yeah.
I think I've written this bit for myself as well, to be honest. And I use it, not everything. A lot of it has become second nature, but that is, it is a muscle. If you don't flex the muscles, then they become weak.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so one of the things that you mentioned is I started talking about this with other people, and we know that science, you've done some research on it, but others have too, and I've read about this, and I've heard Brené Brown talk about vulnerability and how important it is to share when you feel shame or when you don't feel well, to talk to others about it, because it can become your strength instead of your weakness, perceived weakness. So what did you find about that?
Yes, well, going back to what we said earlier, it is also your the context and the situation of what is bothering you that you share or not share, or find ways to share. But the moment you find a way to share, whether you do it publicly like I did, or you do it actually with the help of a coach or a therapist or with family, part of that process is really, at its core, it's about accepting and embracing. And that is step one. Accepting that this is a thing for you, and that it's there, is in and of itself already an act of relief. Mm-hmm. Because, and for me, this accepting this particular fact around lack of confidence or insecurity, that was one step on my journey that eventually I feel very comfortable. But there are other things that I'm not comfortable with and that I find very difficult still. So accepting. So another thing that I've been challenged with my whole life is my weight and my body, being okay with that. Mm-hmm. I'm still on the journey there. And I'm not scared to talk about it, but it is, the moment I can accept, I can move to the second step. And so, yes, Brené Brown is a beautiful role model, actually, in all her talks and in the kindness that she brings out in her story, and the humor she also has. Yeah. Her life, and she's really changed the world because people start talking about it. The other side that I tried to deep dive in, that helped me personally, and hopefully it helps people also to know that it's not only about the storytelling and about the act of kindness and openness and vulnerability. There is this biology behind it. That was very helpful for me, because I thought, I know, and I read a lot of Brené's work, and there are lots of others as well. And then I still didn't understand why certain exercises or why certain things worked. And for me, it was very important to understand actually that there is a science. Yeah, and opening up. So acceptance is one. Acceptance does something to you as. And with your background as well, people with mental health issues or addictions or whatever, you cannot change unless you accept that something is there, and then you can start building. So that's a huge relief if you can be open and if you can share it. But then you have to find your own journey, how you would do it.
Yeah, and I think sharing also has an honesty to it. You need to look into it. You cannot just cover it up anymore. You need to look into it and.
Looking into it is actually, that is a very nice, if I may elaborate on that. So in the Dutch version of the book is a mirror. It's called Authentiek Zelfvertrouwen. And the publisher, Vakmedianet, they've chosen this cover for me, and they've done a wonderful job, because it is, the moment you pick up this book, you look yourself in the eye. And managing confidence, or on the other side of that is managing fear. A large part is actually looking it's in the eye, accepting it, and then in Dutch we say the soup is never eaten as hot as it is served. Eventually it is not as challenging and as painful and as scary as you actually thought. But there is this process actually, that the moment you start looking into it, you start accepting and you start embracing, and you can actually start looking in different ways at the same thing. And that brings a different experience. It makes sense.
Yeah. I think it's a very nice way to, we can elaborate on acceptance for like 10 talks in a row. But this is a very simple in a theoretical way, not in real life, but a simple way to start acceptance is to talk to someone about what is going on and to really name things as they are, and not cover it up anymore. You mix words like fear, anxiety, insecurity. Are they all the same?
Well, they're all a bit, we can go in semantics here. I guess.
Because people can say that, like, I don't have anxiety, I'm just insecure.
Yeah. Well, the key, the key word, so the technicality of things that is maybe too much for a conversation like this, but the key word that I brought up earlier is safety. And when there is lack of safety, you can become insecure. But you can also experience anxiety. And being insecure doesn't mean in psychological or psychopathology that there is an anxiety disorder, or there are different gradations. Is that the English word? Yeah. But the experience, if it becomes a bit more structural, anxiety can mean that you have rumination, and that you can actually have experience of fear in absence of real fear. That's often anxiety. We're thinking about something that may happen tomorrow or that happened yesterday, and we are ruminating because we think there is something bad may happen, and we feel like if we ruminate, we may be more in control. But insecurity is a bit in the same family. It's the thought that you don't have the skills or the idea that you don't have the skills to deal with something, and that can lead to anxiety. They are in the same family. If you are, I think you mentioned before in a conversation that we had before, perfectionism. I guess that if you peel it all down, you can also talk about behind the fear, behind the experience of anxiety, there may be a value system or evaluation that you give to something, and perfectionism is one of those. What are my values? What do I think is right? And so they are all related, but there are different layers that you need to tackle.
So if someone, maybe this question is like too, I don't know, a general question to ask, but if someone were to say, I want to be more authentic, I want to learn to be more emotionally flexible, what would you advise them to? Where can they start?
Of course, reading the book, I would say. But the anchor in it all. So let me first explain a key concept that I find is always very helpful if I explain it in a simple way. It comes from Professor Keegan. Professor Keegan is a professor from Harvard, and he talks about. He specialized in adult learning, and he talks about how you can move. There's more behind it, but I'll mention only two minds: the socialized mind versus the self-authoring mind. The self-authoring mind is what we talk about here. The socialized mind is more about how you actually are dependent on what the world thinks about you, and therefore you try to live up to what the world wants from you. You want to belong to a group, so you want to stick to the norms of that group. You want to be loved by your parents, and therefore you do what your parents say. It's a very logical development because, of course, from child to adult, these things we learn, otherwise we cannot survive in social systems. Mm-hmm. The authentic confidence anchor is really the move to self-authoring mind, which you can do if you start making the switch to, within that system that you grew up, really connecting with what matters to you, what is important to you as a human being. That can, at a simple level, be about your values, honesty, family, care for children, whatever your values are. There are lots of exercises that you can do to figure out, well, what are the values that I find important and how do I actually prioritize them? And of course, there is always multiple, and depending on context and depending on crossroads, you have to then look at, well, what do you choose over the other? But that's one. Another one, and I'm constantly looking for that, is your purpose. Why do you get out of bed in the morning? Your ikigai we talk about is one way. There are multiple ways of looking at it. And that is, that can give you really an anchor of standing, calm in a storm if it really becomes difficult, but also having difficult conversations. If you know why you do the things you do, then moving towards that is a journey that becomes it's maybe still difficult because, for example, I talk about this topic with you now, but I also sometimes are on stage in front of an audience. I don't always find that easy. I still find that vulnerability, you're still thinking, I hope I don't say the things wrong, or I hope things go, according to the plan. But I do it because I know why I do it. I want to talk with compassion about this topic. I want to teach people or tell them that it is very normal and that they are not alone, etc., etc. But also I want to remove stigma. And that gives energy to actually move forward. So that is the starting point that I would say, well, it is helpful to go on a search for yourself. Why do you think you're here? What do you want to add? And it doesn't need to be huge, right? It can be a simple thing, like I want to be here for my family, or I want to, whatever it is. It can be big, like I want to contribute to society. Like I have these thoughts, I want to have big impact, I want to do. Anyway, that's the starting point, because everything else you try in emotional flexibility centers around that. It gives you the move forward and also helps you to make, so to give another example, I am also afraid of heights. Annick, but I don't care about climbing the Kilimanjaro. No, Kilimanjaro is not so high.
Yeah.
The Mount Everest.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to go out of my comfort zone there. I don't care.
You don't want to go bungee jumping.
Yeah.
For me.
So many things that are scary. Well, I also am scared of that. I don't mind. I'm not going to do it. But I do find these things important. And that also evolves because you go through different cycles in life. And so the last thing I want to say about it, we talk about in the book also about your personal operating model. Living life more consciously helps you also to understand, how do I want to spend my energy today? Where do I say yes, and where do I say I said yes to you to have this conversation, and thank you for the invite again. Because this is for me in line with what I want to achieve. Now, I may still say yes to other things that, it doesn't always need to be 100%. And you can still make the choice to do something, to get bored, to spend an hour on nothing. But then it's more a conscious choice. It's not life leading you, but you leading your life. That's the basic principle. So start, I would say, with that, because then you can apply all the other. Emotional flexibility will then help you deal with difficulty that you, one important thing, last thing, and then I know you have more questions. One decision I took in my life many years ago was that I realized that it's I really don't want, if I'm given life till an old age, if I may ever become 80, if I'm fortunate to be healthy and live that long, I don't want to look back on my life and regret the things I didn't do. I rather try things that I think I want to do and then fail. Now that's easier said than done, because I still do not always have the most difficult conversations, because I then choose to avoid conflict, and sometimes you choose your battles. Or failing, Annick, is of course still painful. But it helps me to think like that, because then I go past it.
Yeah, and in everything that you're saying, I don't, by the way, have many questions anymore, because we are talking for a long time.
Oh my God.
Which is very exciting, or inspirational. So it's really nice to do. But I was going to say it really, in German, we would say Fingerspitzengefühl. You need to really focus on what is it that I would say yes to. And I think many people have a tendency to look for success. And when I talk to, I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs or business owners, and oftentimes when they talk about success, they mention, well, I don't have enough time for my kids or for my marriage, and we can all, when we are afraid, when we are not safe, when we are hurrying all the time, we get in this tunnel vision where we think we know what it is that we think is very important to us, or we think that we know why we say yes to things. So it is, I'm sure many people will say, yeah, I know, but still slowing down is quite important to really be conscious about it. And being conscious is also a skill, to learn to pause and say, wait a minute, am I really going to say yes? Does it align with my higher purpose and not with the thing that I'm striving for, which has to do with more materialistic success and not with feeling you. And exactly what you said, and I thought it was so beautifully put. Why are you here? What are you doing here? And does it align with that? And that's, of course, in daily life not such an easy thing to keep considering, but it's really helpful to sometimes think about that.
Yeah, and definitely, and I don't want to be dogmatic about what could be the higher purpose. For some people, you mentioned making money may be something that people really want to do because they want to provide, but whatever it is, then it's a conscious choice. That's what's important. At least that's what I think. Again, also not wanting to be dogmatic, people may also say it's not important to me to know it. So then you are aware that you make a choice not to go into it. And yeah, but then, as you say, the life may take over, the tunnel vision. It's also physically almost impossible if you do not, and I call that also this recovery zone, right? If you don't take the space, you cannot, and also taking good care of yourself, sleeping and eating healthily and exercising, setting yourself up for success in that respect. Is so important, because sometimes even though you think you are aware and here in the moment, it's very difficult actually to see if you're under stress, under pressure. This tunnel vision just happens.
Comes in, yeah.
And you all have blind spots, by the way, especially if we always move in the same circles. We don't learn. That's why also it's interesting to do something scary, ask other people for advice, because you learn things about your blind spots. And then you go further.
Mm-hmm. I love the fact that part of you said yes. I think because you want a taboo to talk about emotional issues and the fact that we can all sometimes have difficult times in our lives and find it hard to live at certain points. That you chose to really want people to talk about this, and I hear in the way that you answer the questions that you really want to be very honest about that yourself and help taboo diminish in that way. So
definitely, and also to know that. So in the work that I've done the last couple of years in learning and development, we talk about this topic of confidence as part of skills to perform better, to reach better results at work, but also to feel better. But there is, of course, a continuum. Also, there's another side that anxiety can lead to mental health challenges as well. And this is more the resilient side, and then you have the mental health side, and there's taboo on everything in these areas. And the key lesson is also, yes, you can learn skills in this space and be prepared for the future, because the world is going crazy, and we've seen it last year. A pandemic hit the world. Nobody had ever predicted it, and who knows what's happening, and we need to continue to learn and develop and so on. On the other side, there are also people suffering even worse with mental health challenges, and they don't know how to manage it. And knowing that A, you're not alone, B, something that can be done, and C, I spoke to a lot of senior executives as well, and also to people in different positions in a business context or in a professional working context. There is, you never know what's going on the other side. There are more people suffering, and many people actually have either coaches or go see therapists and go find help. There is help out there. So whether it's about resilience or whether it's about something serious, you don't need to sit there with it yourself and don't get it solved, because it can lead to worse things. You can really get sick. So that's another thing. This is a heavy topic, but it's an important one for me also to mention, that people know.
Yeah, for me as well. Okay, is there anything that you would like to say to the listeners at the end of our conversation?
Well, there's one word that comes up, Annick, and that's an experience I've had through the conversation. It's about it's a soft topic. It's about the word compassion and kindness, which is, there's hard science behind it, but I keep it on the soft side because I want to embrace that. It has helped me, self-kindness and self-compassion, and that's what I really hope we can bring more into this world. It's been a huge unlock. So give yourself a break every now and then as well. That's maybe the key message.
It's really special that you say that, because of everyone that I've interviewed, it always comes back to that. Everyone tells me that. So that's really weird that is, maybe it's the time that we're in at the moment. I don't know what it is, but it's really something that I've heard a lot. Kindness is so important for ourselves, for people around us. And what you say is true. There is science behind it. It's not just fluffiness. It's really
not at all. Not at all. And it may be something that if that comes up in the conversations that you have a lot, it may also be something that you are able to unleash in the conversation and into the minds of the people you speak with. So I'm very grateful for this conversation and for the time spent with you in this conversation. It's a very different conversation than I usually have. Yeah.
Well, I really, really appreciate that you wanted to spend time with me and doing this conversation. Apart from your book, I will really be sure to mention it. Is there anything else where people can learn more about this?
Yeah, well, they can always connect on LinkedIn. Jacqueline Brassey is my profile. I have a lot of my publications also there. Okay. And also links, because there is a lot available indeed. I post things there. I'm sure they can find things via your websites as well. Yeah, I think that's the safest, because there's so many sources, but I make sure to post that and other links, and of course the book, and people can reach out as well if they have any questions.
Okay, thank you very much.